Welcome to episode 3 of Vex Views Decks. In this series, I go over one of the many archetypes from the YuGiOh card game. I'll talk about the archetype's conceptual design, the pack history of it, the playstyle of it, the competitive relevancy of it, any appearances in the anime, manga, or lore in the card game itself, and my personal thoughts on the archetype as a whole. Then I'll go through the cards one by one, reviewing and riffing on each of them. So poison your fangs for Venom. Design. The non-boss Venom monsters are based off of snakes, and the boss Venom monsters are based off of Nagas. Nagas are a mythical race of snake people. Pack history. Venom debuted in Tactical Evolution in 2007, and that's it. Nothing else. This is a small freaking archetype. I'm going to be blowing right through this thing, trust me. Venom rely on placing Venom counters on enemy monsters, which, while under the effect of Venom Swamp, steadily weaken and eventually destroy them. In fact, their field spell is pretty much an integral part of their playstyle that I'll cover right now. Spooky, ain't it? Its effect is, during each player's end phase, place one Venom counter on each face-up monster, except Venom monsters. Monsters lose 500 attack for each Venom counter on them. Destroy a monster if its attack becomes 0 by this effect. The fact that it places a Venom counter during each end phase is what really gives this card a boost, compared to just placing it on your opponent's end phase. It also doesn't target. Now it will backfire on you, since it is impossible to build a pure Venom deck, but as the bread and butter of the Venom playstyle, you obviously want to run 3. Another element of Venom is filling up the graveyard with reptiles to power up their boss monsters. Competitiveness. Venom have absolutely zero competitive relevancy, and are, in fact, one of the worst archetypes in the game. They are extremely reliant on their field spell to function, because without it, Venom counters do nothing, and unlike A counters, they have no other uses except for the debuff. In addition, they are very weak in terms of attack, as if they will always have their field spell out and nothing will ever happen to it. Hell, the effective Venom Swamp doesn't even activate until the end phase, so they can be run over by a summoned monster even when it's out. Probably the biggest issue with Venom is their lack of monsters. There is a whopping 6 of them. 2 of them are boss monsters, 1 of them is a normie, 1 of them is a shitty tribute monster, and 1 is just a worse version of another simply because it has slightly more attack. I don't think Konami has any intention to do anything new with Venom. It's like they took one look at this barely put together archetype and decided, oh, this anime archetype already has an OP boss monster. That should be enough to carry it. Moving on. Appearances. Believe it or not, Venom actually did have an appearance in the anime. They were used in GX by Professor Viper, who kinda started out as the main villain of Season 3, but it turned out he was just a pawn being used by everyone's favorite creepy little hermaphrodite demon, YuGiOh. Also, Viper was ripped as hell. Seriously, look at him. Why the fuck are you bothering playing card games with a bod like that? Anyway, he was unceremoniously defeated by Jaden so YuGiOh could take center stage. My thoughts. In spite of the fact that it's an absolutely terrible deck, I really like Venom. Not nearly as much as aliens and spirits, but I liked them. I love snakes and I really love the boss monsters of the deck. Venom Onaga is in my top 5 favorite monsters. The playstyle of the deck isn't all that interesting honestly, but the deck has so much potential to be good if Konami gave it new support. Maybe not great, but good. I'm convinced that maybe, one day we'll see it. And no, starring Venom Fusion Dragon is only Venom support in name. The cards! Now for the monsters, spells, and traps of the archetype. Just like aliens, Venom have an oddly placed normie. Venom Cobra. Not only is its tail a sickle, but look at that hood! Eat your friggin' heart out, Arbok! It's a level 4 Earth normal monster with 100 attack and 2000 defense. Jeez, I'm getting 2002 flashbacks with cards like Island Turtle from this guy. Its flavor text is, hard scales cover all parts of this gigantic cobra. It hunts by shooting large amounts of venom, but because of its large size, its attack pattern is easily predicted. Well, just like Alien Shock Trooper, the flavor text matches with its stats, at least for the defense part. Is the fact that it's easily predicted the reason it has 100 attack? Because that doesn't make any sense. Just because your attack pattern is predictable doesn't suddenly mean your attacks won't do any damage if you land a hit. Also, take note how it says it shoots large amounts of venom, but it can't place any venom counters, and that cobras are notorious for their venom, yet in the context of gameplay mechanics, it's non-venomous.
You take the venom out of a cobra, and what do you got? You got a belt.
Next is Venom Snake, and good lord, snake tongues are not that long. Put that thing away, you're already covered in spikes and got a spring-loaded dagger for a tail anyway. It's a level 3 earth monster with 1200 attack and 600 defense. Its effect is, once per turn you can place one venom counter on one monster your opponent controls. If you activate this effect, this card cannot attack during this turn. So this is pretty much the extent of the effects of the venom monsters, placing venom counters and nothing else. You've seen one of them, you've seen them all. I don't know what the hell the attack restriction is for though. It seems completely unnecessary since the strongest monster this thing can even run over with only one venom counter is one with 1600 attack. Next is Venom Serpent. So rather than basing these guys off of a specific species, they just attach generic terms to them. As you can see, it has 2 heads, which is actually a real-life mutation called polycephaly. It's extremely rare, and animals born this way generally don't live very long. However, 2-headed snakes don't have snaggletooth fangs like Serpent here. It's a level 4 dark monster. That's right, not Earth like the other regular venom monsters, but dark. Maybe 2 heads makes it spooky or something? With 1000 attack and 800 defense. Yeah, it's got lower attack than Snake, yet its level is higher. This is some Otohime bullshit right here. Its effect lets you place a venom counter, and has no attack restriction like Snake. In fact, it's the only venom monster that can attack after placing a counter. Is it because it has 2 heads? One of them places a counter while the other attacks? Can Snake not attack with its dagger tail instead? Or is it because Snake has a whopping 200 more attack than Serpent? Funny thing is, Serpent is actually the best venom monster. That's right, the bar for this deck is so low that the best card is a monster that has the bare minimum of 4-digit attack value and is blessed with actually being able to do something after using its effect. Next is Venom Boa. Not only is he Snake with blue eyes, but he's got 3 of them. His entire body looks like it's kinda rotting away. And you might notice it has a friggin' eyeless cobra for a tail. It's a level 5 earth monster with 1600 attack and 1200 defense. Oh my raw, those stats would suck on a level 4 monster, yet I'm expected to tribute for this? Its effect is just as bad. It can't attack on the turn it uses it, but it places 2 venom counters. Honestly, if it was level 4, the attack restriction would kinda make sense, but Venom don't have the field presence to reliably tribute summon, let alone for something as lackluster as this. Also, boas are non-venomous snakes, so this thing shouldn't even be able to do that in the first place. Yet it's technically the most venomous of the venom monsters, so it and Cobra really should have had their position swapped. Next is Phenomena, the king of poisonous snakes, Hey, everyone and their mother has made that joke, I might as well get in on it too. So take note of this guy. He's a snake man with a cape tied together by snakes, snakes wrapped around his head, and snakes for fingers. Can you imagine shaking hands with this guy? Be like hand-feeding Cthulhu at an HP Lovecraft petting zoo. He's a level 8 dark monster with 0 attack and defense. How interesting. His effect is, cannot be special summoned by another effect monster's effect. Oh, sorry Mystic Tomato. So how the hell do you summon this guy? Am I expected to tribute for him in a Venom deck? Well no, there's a trap card called Damage equals Reptile, which equals you a reptile when you take damage. So you get so much as a scratch on you with a reptile, you can bring Phenomenon straight from your deck. And with how weak Venom monsters are, taking damage is not going to be a problem. Although this makes Phenomenon a Garnet. This card is unaffected by Venom Swamp. That may seem redundant, but take note of his name. It's Venom, with 2 N's, so he's technically not a Venom monster. This card gains 500 attack for each reptile type monster in your graveyard. Oh, so that's why he has 0 attack. Supplying your grave with reptiles is quite easy. with a very infamous card known as Snake Rain. It lets you mill 4 reptiles from your deck, so that puts them at 2000 attack right off the bat. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can banish one other reptile type monster from your graveyard. Special summon this card. A King of the Skull Servant's like revival effect is really cool. Too bad he doesn't protect him from being destroyed by card effects. Or any other form of removal really, but the card effect destruction part is important. Run 2 of them. 3 runs a high risk for bricking, but 2 gives you some extra muscle and 2 shots at bringing out the next monster. The last monster is Venom Onaga, the deity of poisonous snakes. Look at this girl, she's absolutely stunning. A thick snake lady with red boobs, snakes for hair, snakes for arms, and one-eyed spined snakes for tongues on her snakes for arms. She's a level 10 dark monster with 0 attack and defense. This may sound familiar, but get ready for her effect because it's a freaking doozy. Her effect is, cannot be normal summoned or set, must first be special summoned with Rise of the Snake Deity and cannot be special summoned by other ways except by its own effect. Let's cover Rise of the Snake Deity right now. And with a name and artwork like that, it really sells the you're fucked to your opponent. Its effect is, when a face-up phenomenon, the king of poisonous snakes you control is destroyed, except by battle, special summon 1 Venom Onaga, the deity of poisonous snakes, from your hand or deck. Yes, that is a very specific activation condition, but there is a card called Offerings to the Snake Deity which is specifically designed to help fulfill it. Special summoning from the deck is very good, because a number of cards like this around that time only special summon from the hand, so Venom should count themselves lucky that they got this. Run 2 of this card. If you run 1, you won't see it often enough, but if you run 3, you'll see it too much in Brick. Now back to Venom Onaga. This card gains 500 attack for each reptile type monster in your graveyard. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can banish one other reptile type monster from your graveyard. Special summon this card. The same effect that Phenomenon has. That's nice, that's nice. This card cannot be targeted by, and is unaffected by, spell trap effects and other effect monsters' effects. Boom! There it is! There it is! This is what makes Venom Onaga an absolute monster of a boss monster. Eat your fucking heart out, Apocalypse Towers. I mean, sure, you can just cheese over her with a kaiju, but sadly we all can't be like Darkest Diablos. For the longest time, this was the only monster in the game to be immune to all card effects. And even now, she's the only one who can't be targeted by them either. That may seem redundant, but it protects her from cards like not actually a Venom Fusion Dragon. It also means you can't cheese over the downside of Offerings to the Snake Deity either. And by the way, we're still not done with her effect. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, place 1 Hyper Venom counter on it. When 3 Hyper Venom counters are on this card, you win the duel. Wow. Talk about the cherry on top, huh? A revival effect, a variable attack stat, and even full card effect immunity, and then you just slap a fucking win condition on her. Not only is this completely unnecessary, but it's completely impractical too. Impractical in the sense of her effect. Venom is a very impractical deck in general. The thing is, Venom Onaga is so hard to summon that it's probably going to be a late game if you get her out. And by then, you'll usually have enough reptiles on the grave to push her to at least 3000 attack. Then your opponent is going to start turtling to delay their inevitable loss. You'll be relying on direct damage from her. And by then, she's probably going to 2-shot your opponent at most. Basically, Venom Onaga is a win condition in and of herself, so having a win condition as part of her effect is like putting a hat on a hat. In the anime, you won the duel 3 turns after she inflicted battle damage, which honestly would have been far more useful. Still, you just gotta sit back and appreciate that it's Venom that got a card of this level. Venom! One of the absolute worst decks in the game gets one of the most powerful monsters in the game. And to add on to that, it's a deck used by a minor villain who gets one-up by YuGiOh just a handful of episodes into the season. Just the whole situation is absolutely hysterical to me. Only run 1 of her. I've seen Dum Dums run 2, or god forbid 3 of her. Rise of the Snake Deity pulls from the deck, so you don't even need to draw into her. Yes, you could potentially mill her or some shit, but actually summoning her is so rare that you should count on winning with Phenomenon more than you do for her anyway. With the monsters done, we move on to the spells and traps. First is Venom Shot, their only other spell besides Swamp. That is a terrifying artwork. Phenomenon has the look of an insane murderer, and that snake is not one of his fingers since it's fleshy instead of dark green. It's a normal spell, and its effect is, activate only while you control a face-up venom monster, Venom Onaga, the deity of poisonous snakes, or Phenomenon, the king of poisonous snakes. Send one reptile-type monster from your deck to the graveyard, and place 2 venom counters on one face-up monster your opponent controls. Okay, looking at the card by itself, it's okay. It sets up your graveyard for your boss monsters and severely cripples an enemy monster. However, it is completely outclassed by Snake Rain, which mills more reptiles and has a far easier to fulfill activation condition. Another problem with this card is the same problem the other Venom support cards have. It requires you to control Venom monsters. That seems incredibly obvious, I know, but that's what makes these cards very hard to use. Remember, there's only 4 actual Venom monsters. One of them is a normie and one of them is a shitty tribute monster. This means it's going to be very hard to pull off the effects of these support cards to the point that they're all almost situational in their usage. Well, okay, this one isn't the best example of that, and is actually the least restrictive of the support cards, being a spell and including the 2 boss monsters too. But you'll see the problem that arises in the other cards. Anyway, like I said, run Snake Rain instead. Next is Venom Burn. So this is what a Venom counter looks like. It's a snake made of venom. Okay, that's neat. It's a normal trap and its effect is, select one monster with a venom counters. Remove all venom counters from that card and inflict 700 damage to your opponent for each venom counter removed. Well, its name is appropriate enough, and 700 per counter is certainly nothing to sneeze at in terms of burn damage. A lot better than that stupid Cloudy and Burn card at least. However, this doesn't have a whole lot of application other than to save your non-venom monsters, because removing counters from enemy monsters is, counterproductive to the deck. It's not awful, but it's not worth running either. Next is Ambush Fangs, depicting Venom Cobra attacking Giga Gaga Gigo. Definitely sells the gigantic cobra part of its flavor text here. It's a normal trap and its effect is, activate only when a face-up Venom monster you control is declared in its attack target. Negate the attack and end the battle phase. Then place 1 Venom counter on the monster that attacked. That is actually quite good. Unlike a lot of shitty archetype battle traps at the time, like D-counter, this isn't completely outclassed by a generic battle trap either. Places a Venom counter on the attacker, which could potentially cripple it enough for you to run over next turn. So that's a bit of an edge over Negate attack. However, again, there are so few Venom monsters that you were better off with generic battle traps like said Negate attack. They'll at least always be live, rather than you sitting on it and hoping you can get a Venom monster out. In addition, the counter doesn't even mean anything if you don't have Swamp activated. The last card is Snake Deity's Command, and boy is that explorer in a heap of trouble. Not only is he getting swarmed by snakes, but there is someone watching him from afar. It's a counter trap, and its effect is, activate by showing your opponent 1 Venom monster in your hand. Negate the activation of an effect of an opponent's spell card, and destroy it. Holy shit, that is actually freaking awesome! Sure, it only negates spells, but this card really stands out from archetype counter traps even today. Never mind the fact that cards like this were rare around the time of this card's release. The cost is like non-existent. No discard, no tributing, no nothing. Just a stupid little hand reveal and boom, no spell for you. Well, at least no cost within the card game itself. In a more meta sense, the cost is quite heavy, and it's for the same reason as the previous support cards. There are very few Venom monsters to be able to use this consistently. You're honestly better off using Magic Jammer. This has been episode 3 of Vex Views Decks. Until next time, remember to carry a first aid kit wherever you go hiking, because the last thing you want to happen is be injected with venom without any means of treatment.